Julian returned well after midnight. This had become a familiar pattern over the past 2 months, a silent testament to the growing distance between them. Tonight, however, felt different. It was their 3rd wedding anniversary. His eyes swept over the dinner table, where an elaborate meal for 2 sat cold and untouched. A frown creased his forehead as he questioned the effort, reminding her that he had already informed her he wouldn't be home. It was clear he'd forgotten that he hadn't contacted her in weeks. The last message he'd sent, 2 months prior, was a terse notification that he wouldn't be coming back for a while. That was the night his fated Omega, Leo, had gone into heat at a gala. Julian had wrapped his jacket around the younger man and carried him out in front of everyone, leaving Alara to endure the speculative gazes of the other guests. She had stayed until the very end of the event, a statue of composure, only to go home and sit by their bed until dawn. That morning, his text had arrived. It didn't take a genius to understand what happened when an Alpha stayed with an Omega in heat. From that day on, he made no effort to hide his relationship with Leo, parading him at every social function. The consensus was that Julian had finally accepted his destiny. Yet, he had never once mentioned divorce. His gaze landed on a small cheesecake on the counter, a single candle shaped like the number 3 pushed into its surface. A flicker of recognition, then discomfort, crossed his face. After a moment of silence, he pulled a single mint candy from his pocket. Alara was a beta, unable to perceive pheromones. The mints were his scent, a substitute he always carried. In the beginning, a shared glance was all it took for them to fall into each other's arms. A single mint would pass between their lips, the cool flavor mixing with their passion. He would whisper how much he loved her then. Now he held it out, his eyes downcast. When she didn't take it, he tossed it onto the table with an air of impatience. He told her not to be difficult, that he was under a great deal of stress. The source of that stress, she knew, was her. She was a beta from a respectable but unremarkable family. Marrying him was a coup for her, but a liability for him. She couldn't provide the connections he needed, and the chances of them having a child were slim. He hadn't cared before, promising to shield her from everything. But he had broken that promise. His reassurances about her inability to conceive had slowly curdled from gentle comfort to frustrated demands, culminating in him blaming her for his affair with Leo, pointing out how the Omega never complained about his lack of official status. Julian tossed his blazer onto a chair and headed upstairs. As the sound of his footsteps faded, Alara remembered the other surprise she had planned. A surprise that now felt more like a meticulously crafted humiliation. She rushed upstairs, but she was too late. He was standing in the bedroom doorway, his expression grim as he surveyed the scattered rose petals, the scented candles, and the daring lingerie laid out on the bed. He turned to her, his eyes dark and unreadable. Steeling herself, she walked forward, feeling a wave of acute embarrassment wash over her. His late return and his cold demeanor had already told her everything she needed to know. He wasn't interested. Julian loosened his tie and let out a short, humorless laugh. Before she could process its meaning, he pulled her against him, and they stumbled onto the bed. His cool hands were on her, pushing aside the fabric of her robe, his fingers digging into her waist. It had been so long, she felt frozen, unsure how to react. She had expected him to reject her as he had the last time, complaining that being with her was too much work without the aid of pheromones. He had forgotten how he once cherished the slow, deliberate exploration of their bodies, how he used to say that a connection unswayed by biology was a true meeting of souls. That had all changed when his family began considering his younger, more fertile brother as the heir to their corporate empire. When Julian's lips descended, she instinctively turned her head away. His body tensed. He grabbed her chin, his voice rough as he asked if this wasn't what she wanted. Waiting up for him all night. He must have showered before coming home, but even the cloying scent of flowers in the room couldn't entirely mask the faint, foreign scent clinging to him. It was nauseating. Swallowing her disgust, she wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed the base of his throat. This seemed to please him, and he pressed down on her again. Staring at the ceiling, she sensed the moment was right and spoke softly about the commercial land deal in the West End. The motion stopped instantly. Julian pushed himself up, looking down at her with an expression of pure disdain. He rolled off the bed. He called her a buzzkill. All that effort for nothing. The mission had failed. She regretted not bringing it up when he'd first offered the mint, when a sliver of guilt might have still been present. Now, she didn't know how she would face her family, a pack of ruthless predators. The love she'd felt for Julian had frozen solid that night he'd walked out with Leo. She had wanted to end the marriage then, but her own family had refused. They gave her two choices: win him back or be disowned and financially ruined. Trembling, she sent a text message. Lying back on the large, cold bed, she braced for the inevitable tirade. Instead, her phone vibrated with a new message, a confirmation from a clinic. The appointment was for a beta gender reassignment surgery. She stared at the words, a chill spreading through her veins. A new message popped up from her father. It said he would pick her up in the morning and that she shouldn't even think about running. When she married Julian, she thought she had escaped the abyss of her family. For the first 2 years, with his support, she had felt safe. But when his attention shifted to Leo, she was dragged back into the darkness, deeper than before. At least before, they had merely ignored her. Her first instinct was to call Julian for help. The message she sent went unanswered. After hesitating, she dialed his number. After a long 10 seconds, someone answered. It was a lazy, syrupy voice. It was Leo, informing her that Julian was asleep. Her heart clenched, a bitter wave of resignation washing over her. She thought she was past the point of being hurt, but apparently not. She remembered looking up Leo when she first suspected something. He was the pampered son of a wealthy family, a nearly perfect phenomenal match for Julian. A match made in heaven. How could she ever compete with someone who shone so brightly? She recalled a time she had asked Julian to retell the story of how he chose her. He would patiently stop whatever he was doing, kiss her eyelids, and pull her into his arms. He'd described the chaotic party where an Omega's pheromones had sent everyone into a frenzy, but she had been in a corner, happily stuffing tiny cakes into her mouth, her cheeks puffed out like a chipmunk he'd had as a child. He'd called her endearing. When she'd asked him again, years later, he hadn't answered, his silence a stark contrast to the memory. As she moved to hang up, Leo's voice came through again, taunting her about fate and how people can't fight it. Perhaps he was right. She should accept her fate. But it felt cruel to be given such a beautiful dream only to have it snatched away so quickly. The next day, she found herself in the sterile-smelling hospital, escorted by men her father had sent. As a nurse prepared to insert an IV, a commotion erupted nearby. Couple was screaming. Their son had died 2 days after undergoing the same surgery. Alara knew the procedure was risky, but she hadn't realized it could be fatal. The couple was quickly removed by security. She looked at the nurse in panic. The nurse glanced at the imposing men standing behind Alara and sighed, lowering her voice. She asked if Alara was truly there voluntarily. Seeing Alara's silence, the nurse's expression softened with understanding. She rummaged under her desk and pulled out a form, giving Alara a subtle wink. If any of the pre-op conditions on the list were not met, the procedure would have to be postponed. Her heart pounded as she read down the list. She pointed to one item and lied, asking if recent sexual activity was a disqualifier. Last night had been a failure, but it was her only way out. The nurse, visibly relieved, confirmed it was. They would have to wait a month. After a long phone call, her family's escorts reluctantly let her go. She knew they wouldn't give up. They would exploit any value she had until there was nothing left. Her execution had merely been stayed for 1 month. Their goal was simple: make her an Omega so she could conceive. If only she could get Julian to cooperate this month. But she had tried and he seemed unwilling. She suddenly remembered a piece of gossip she'd overheard at a dinner with Julian. An Enigma had turned an Alpha into an Omega and then abandoned them. The Omega Protection Center had sued, but the case was a legal nightmare due to the Omega's original gender. If she could find an Enigma, the will to survive erased all shame. She quickly identified a potential target, an Enigma who worked as a laborer, someone with no connections or background. Someone she could pay off and who would disappear without a trace. Her confidence wavered as she approached the address. A secluded modern home of glass and cedar hidden by a grove of whispering aspens. A construction worker couldn't possibly afford a place like this. Pushing open the gate, she saw a man with his back to her, pruning a jasmine vine. Piles of slate and gravel nearby suggested he was landscaping the garden. He wore a dark, form-fitting t-shirt that accentuated the powerful muscles of his back and arms. Hearing her approach, he glanced over his shoulder before decisively snipping another branch. He asked if she was looking for him. As he climbed down from a small ladder, her mind raced with what she had to do. Her gaze inadvertently dropped lower. His work pants did little to hide his physique. When her eyes met his again, she felt a blush creep up her neck. He was handsome. Far from the ordeal she had imagined, this might actually be a pleasant experience. She stammered out the name from her research, Caleb, and told him she wanted to make a deal. An expression of surprise crossed his face, followed by an amused smile. He asked what kind of deal. In the bright light of day, she found herself unable to say the words. She asked if they could speak inside. He studied her for a moment before nodding. Inside, he went to wash his hands and put on a kettle for coffee. She took 2 thick bundles of cash from her bag and placed them on the solid oak table. Even in her nervous state, she couldn't help but notice the quality of the furniture. This was no simple laborer. His refined demeanor didn't fit the part. Just as she was contemplating escape, he returned with 2 mugs. His eyes flickered to the cash on the table, an eyebrow raised in amusement. He remarked that it must be a serious deal. She had come this far. There was no turning back. She closed her eyes and blurted it out. She wanted him to sleep with her. He was clearly stunned. Then he leaned against the table and laughed. A deep, genuine laugh that made his shoulders shake. He apologized and asked her to repeat herself. Her courage spent, she couldn't look at him. Realizing her phrasing had been crude, she tried a more delicate approach. She offered to make it worth his while. She explained that if he turned her into an Omega, this was the down payment, with more to follow upon completion. Silence followed her words. She dared to look up and saw that the smile had vanished from his face. She wondered if the money was too little or if there was something wrong with her. He asked who sent her. She shook her head vehemently, insisting she had come on her own. He placed a hand on the stacks of cash. She watched his long, elegant fingers, hoping he would take it. Instead, he pushed the money back towards her. He apologized, stating that he couldn't accept her offer. He had refused. This was all the money she had. She asked how much he wanted. He calmly poured the coffee and told her it wasn't about the money. Some things were simply not possible. Her gaze fell to his powerful frame, and she fell silent. She suggested they could try, just in case he was mistaken about his capabilities. This time, it was his turn to be silent. He asked why she had chosen him. She began to regret not picking the other enigma on her list, a venture capitalist who likely would have been more receptive to a financial transaction. She mumbled something about him looking capable. He choked on his coffee. As he turned to get a napkin, she quickly emptied a small packet of powder into his mug. This was Plan B. If she drugged him, he couldn't be held responsible. It was her first time doing something like this, and her hands trembled, spilling half the powder on the table. As she reached to wipe it away, he turned back around. He asked what she was doing. In a moment of panic, she grabbed the mug and drank it all herself. It was the aphrodisiac her family had given her for Julian. It worked fast. A wave of heat started deep in her belly and spread through her entire body. Her legs went weak. She tried to sit down but missed the chair, collapsing onto the cool tile floor. The pain transformed into a strange, intense pleasure, and a soft moan escaped her lips. Her vision blurred. He was crouching in front of her, trying to help her up. Where their skin touched, a tingling sensation shot through her, intoxicating and addictive. She wanted more. She threw herself forward, wrapping her arms around his waist, burying her face against his firm abdomen. She felt his muscles tense. He lifted her to her feet, but she was unstable, leaning heavily against him. He asked if she was in pain. She nodded frantically, her hands moving of their own accord to explore his broad chest. She heard him draw a sharp breath. He said he couldn't take advantage of her. She wanted to scream that he had her permission, but the words wouldn't come. She could only act. The one thing she had learned from her years with Julian was that a man's throat was a sensitive spot. She hooked her arms around his neck, stood on her toes, and pressed her lips to his Adam's apple. She managed to whisper a single word. "Please." The man's breathing hitched. The events that followed unfolded as she had hoped. His body temperature soared, his arms tightening around her back until she could barely breathe. He kissed her, a deep, dominating kiss that left her breathless and dizzy. Her body felt like a parched landscape set ablaze, and his every touch was like a drop of rain. It wasn't enough. She needed a downpour. As he pushed her down onto a nearby sofa, the drug had consumed her, and she wrapped her legs around his waist, desperate. Yet, a sliver of reason remained, and she clutched at his shirt, trembling with fear. His breathing was hot and ragged, and then, just as things were reaching a peak, he stopped. He pushed himself away from her. The heat, which had momentarily subsided, returned with a vengeance, 1,000 tiny insects crawling under her skin. Hot tears streamed from the corners of her eyes. She reached for him but grasped only air. A profound sense of shame washed over her. It was her. A dry, unappealing beta could not entice anyone. The thought of her own inadequacy was crushing. Just as her arm fell limp, she felt a warm hand catch hers. His fingers slowly closed around her hand, enveloping it completely, but he made no further move. In a daze, she heard him on the phone, his voice hoarse. He was asking his assistant, Lee, to bring a doctor and 2 doses of suppressants. Suppressants? She didn't need suppressants. His voice, calm and reassuring, was the last thing she heard before she passed out, telling her not to be afraid, that the discomfort would soon be over. She awoke feeling sore, but the intense heat was gone. replaced by a sense of clarity. Sunlight streamed through the windows. She struggled to recall what had happened. Seeing her bag by the bed, the memories came rushing back. Tentatively, she felt her neck. It was smooth. She hesitated, then checked herself more thoroughly. A wave of unprecedented disappointment washed over her. It hadn't worked. The humiliation was immense. Caleb was in the garden again, dressed in a loose white shirt that hid his impressive physique. He looked more like a master gardener than a laborer. She commented that he was leaving too many non-fruiting branches near the fruit-bearing ones. He turned, a hint of surprise on his face. She didn't elaborate, simply took the shears from his hand, made a few quick, expert cuts, and handed them back, explaining that she had taken a horticulture class in college. He thanked her, then, after a pause, apologized. The sudden apology was jarring, but she knew what it was for. She grabbed her backpack and pulled out the bundles of cash, placing them on his ladder. She had noticed when she picked up the bag that it was much heavier than before. He had multiplied the amount of money she had brought. It was strange. He was apologizing for not having sex with her and offering financial compensation. It confirmed her suspicion that he was more than he appeared to be. Her research had been flawed. She would have to find someone else. He asked why she wanted to become an Omega, if it was to hold on to her partner. She slung the bag over her shoulder and shook her head without hesitation, telling him it was to save her own life. Her answer clearly surprised him. His brow furrowed, his expression turning serious. She didn't want to explain further. It was getting late. Although Julian rarely came home these days, it was better to be cautious. He told her he was sorry he couldn't help her, but warned her against using such a potent drug again due to its severe side effects. So that's why her body ached so much. Her family had never mentioned that. She forced a smile. It was a good thing she drank it then and not him. When she arrived back at the estate, the housekeeper greeted her with a complex, hesitant expression. A thought flickered in her mind. Had Julian noticed she was gone all night? She soon discovered the reason for the housekeeper's unease. Julian had brought Leo home. They had been in the master bedroom since last night and hadn't emerged. The housekeeper explained that Julian was in his rut, carefully gauging her reaction before looking away. A rut that meant they would be in that room for a very long time. As a beta, she couldn't be marked, nor could she emit soothing pheromones. Julian's ruts were always long and arduous for her. The aftermath always left her neck raw and bleeding from his repeated, fruitless attempts to mark a non-existent gland. She glanced up at the second floor. That room was no longer hers. She never wanted to sleep there again. But where else could she go? Exhausted, she just wanted to shower. The housekeeper prepared the first-floor guest room for her. She realized all her clothes were in the master suite's closet. Defeated, she lay down in her day clothes. The desire to escape grew stronger. She regretted returning the money Caleb had put in her bag. What a fool she had been. More than that, she regretted ever being with Julian. His promises of love and protection were empty, and he had only pushed her into a more perilous situation. Later, heading to the kitchen for dinner, she found Julian there. He was shirtless, his shoulders covered in deep scratches. He was arranging a small portion of food on a tray, clearly intending to take it up to Leo. So this is how Omegas were treated. She had never received such care. Julian noticed her and paused. He asked her to just be patient for a little while longer. She found the request laughable and asked what she was supposed to be patient for. He started to say something about when the child was born, then stopped, his brow furrowing. He set down the tray and walked over to her, leaning in close. He demanded to know why she smelled of another's pheromones. Pheromones? Her mind flashed back to the previous night's feverish haze and the man's hoarse voice asking for suppressants. She looked down, sniffing her clothes even though she knew she couldn't smell anything. A flicker of curiosity sparked within her. She wondered what his pheromones smelled like. Julian's voice was sharp, demanding an answer. His expression was dark with anger. She claimed she must have picked up the scent somewhere. This only enraged him further. He told her not to play him for a fool. The concentration was too strong to be a coincidence. He started to accuse her, but she cut him off, looking past him towards the second floor. She asked if he could get her pajamas for her, promising she would wash the scent out. Julian fell silent. After a long moment, he took a step back. He told her he had no choice, that she had to understand. She blinked, telling him she wasn't making a scene. She simply didn't care anymore. Julian's rut lasted a week. Alara spent every day in the guest room, plotting her escape from both her family and his. She assumed he would leave with Leo once it was over. Instead, he came to her and asked her to accompany him to a meeting. She hadn't attended any events with him for a long time, tired of the pitying and scornful looks. He explained they were visiting a powerful figure, a financial magnate who had recently returned to the country and was notoriously reclusive. She wanted to tell him to take Leo, but held her tongue. After a rut, an Omega was often weak for weeks. The car wound its way through a series of quiet, tree-lined streets that began to look familiar. A sense of unease grew within her. Surely Julian hadn't found out who she had gone to see. She didn't care about his opinion, but she didn't want to cause trouble for the man who had shown her unexpected kindness. She considered confessing right then. Julian, sensing her anxiety, told her not to be nervous, to just follow his lead. That seemed to confirm her fears were unfounded. Just as she began to relax, the car stopped in front of a familiar gate. She stared in disbelief. It was Caleb's house. So Julian was here for a confrontation, and he had tricked her into coming along. She pleaded with him to go home so they could talk. Annoyance crossed his face as he grabbed her hand and pulled her out of the car. He told her not to cause a scene, that their host, a Mr. Vance, had a passion for botany and she should use that to her advantage. Who was Vance? Was this a business meeting after all? Perhaps Caleb wasn't the owner. That would explain it. A simple laborer couldn't afford a place like this. She prayed Caleb wouldn't be working here today. The moment she stepped through the gate, she saw him. Her vision swam, and she nearly tripped over the threshold. Julian steadied her, his expression souring. Her panicked eyes met the man's across the yard. She desperately mouthed the words, "Go away." The man tilted his head in confusion. He was handsome, but apparently not very quick on the uptake. The next second, Julian extended his hand towards him. He introduced himself to Mr. Vance. Caleb, no Vance. Shifted his gaze from Alara to Julian's hand, which hung awkwardly in the air. After a moment, he turned and gestured for them to enter. A cold sweat trickled down her back. Back in the familiar room, sitting at the same table, she couldn't process a single word of their conversation. She tried to make herself invisible, but Julian dragged her into the conversation, suggesting to Vance that Alara was quite knowledgeable about landscaping and could help him with his garden. She looked up sharply. Vance took a sip of his coffee, his eyes meeting hers over the rim of the mug. He simply said, "I know." Julian didn't find the reply odd. Alara wanted the ground to swallow her whole. This man, whom Julian described as a titan of industry, was the same man she had tried to buy for a night, had attempted to drug, and had then presumptuously pruned his prized jasmine vine. After a tense half hour, they prepared to leave. Vance suddenly asked her to stay. He mentioned a bonsai tree a friend had acquired for him at an auction and said he wanted her opinion on it. Julian, who had been displeased with the unproductive meeting and Alara's silence, brightened at this. Just then, his phone rang. He frowned at the screen and stepped outside to take the call. Alara turned to Vance and whispered an apology, explaining that she had mistaken him for someone else. He calmly told her that the real Caleb had done some work for him months ago and that he had used the man's information for his own registration, so it wasn't her fault. But before he could continue, Julian returned, looking agitated. He told Alara something had come up with Leo and he had to leave. He said she could have the driver pick her up when she was finished. Panicked, she grabbed his sleeve, not wanting to be left alone. He pulled away, telling her not to be difficult before giving Vance a curt nod and leaving without a backward glance. The early spring air was cool, but she felt as if she had been plunged into ice water. She heard the rest of Vance's sentence. But no one has ever dared to try and make me the other man before. Strangely, with everything out in the open, her fear dissipated, replaced by a calm resignation. She tried to explain that she wasn't trying to break up a relationship, but to preserve one. He asked if Julian was forcing her to become an Omega to have a child. She shook her head numbly, clarifying that it was her family. Vance considered this for a moment, then asked about the bonsai. She realized it was just a pretext to keep her there, but she didn't understand why. He seemed inclined to let the matter drop. He asked her if being a beta was so bad, to be free from the influence of pheromones and desire. She didn't want to get into a philosophical debate. She just wanted to leave. She told him it was fine for others, but not in her situation. His comment, however, sparked a lingering curiosity. She asked him what his pheromones smelled like. She imagined something strong like gasoline or burnt wood. He was an enigma after all. Vance paused, then took a step closer. An innate sense of pressure emanated from him, and she instinctively wanted to retreat. She quickly said she didn't need to know anymore. He chuckled softly and told her he would let her smell. She stared, confused, reminding him she was a beta. Her words were cut off as he bent his head, exposing the back of his neck. She froze, shocked. To bare one's scent gland was an act of ultimate vulnerability and trust. For anyone other than a beta, it was like showing them your heart. He prompted her, asking if she wasn't curious. Hesitantly, she leaned in. His skin was smooth, his hair curling slightly at the nape of his neck. She could smell the clean scent of his shampoo and soap, a pleasant human scent, not the scent of an enigma. Then she noticed it. A fresh, delicate fragrance floated in the air from the numerous small trees planted in the garden. She asked tentatively if it was wild jasmine. He straightened up and sat down, confirming it was. He asked if she was disappointed. She replied that it was lovely, like spring. She realized he could mask his pheromones with the scent of the flowers. He then confessed that he was actually an alpha and had faked his second gender to avoid complications. She understood. Few alphas would welcome the risk of being turned into an omega. But she didn't understand why he was telling her this, as if to ease her fears. He stated that he didn't support what she was trying to do and couldn't help her with a second differentiation. But he said he could help with her current problem. His expression was serious, and her heart pounded. She asked why he would help her. He smiled. He said he wanted to make a deal with her after all on one condition. She had to divorce Julian. The Hayes family empire crumbled. It happened suddenly, quietly, as if an unseen hand had severed its lifelines. Years of corruption and mismanagement had hollowed it out from the inside. In the ensuing chaos, Alara was completely forgotten, finally free from their control. She wanted to thank Vance, but was preoccupied with Julian and Leo. Leo was pregnant. It was the perfect time for her to ask for a divorce. She offered them her blessings and presented Julian with the papers she had prepared long ago. He refused vehemently. He cornered her outside the room where Leo was resting. He begged her to endure for just a little longer. He explained that he had to pretend to be close to Leo to secure the pregnancy. But now that Leo was trapped, their struggles were almost over. Once the baby was born, they would have a child, he and Alara. She stared at him, dumbfounded. He was a stranger to her. He continued, his voice fervent, saying there would be no more imperfections in their life together. He promised to have Leo's permanent mark cleansed, a dangerous procedure that could be fatal. And he said it was all for her, because she couldn't conceive. Someone else had to suffer in her place. He told her he loved her, that she would be his only partner for life. But he had never consulted her. He had humiliated her in public while showering Leo with affection. He had left her to sleep in a cold bed night after night. And now he claimed it was all for her. The audacity was breathtaking. He swore he would never divorce her. When her repeated requests for him to sign the papers made it clear she was serious, Julian began to panic. He left a nurse with Leo and started shadowing Alara's every move. One evening, he entered her room holding the lingerie she had bought for their anniversary. He closed the door behind him. She quickly shut her laptop, avoiding his gaze. She told him she wasn't interested and that signing the papers was best for both of them. He approached the bed, his voice taking on a wheedling tone, asking if she wanted to put it on herself, or if he should help. She took a deep breath and uttered a single word: disgusting. Julian's face changed. He moved towards her, and the memory of his betrayal, his deceit, and his affair turned her indifference into active revulsion. His touch, his voice, his very scent were repugnant to her. He pulled a mint candy from his pocket, fumbling with the wrapper. When it wouldn't tear, his frustration grew. She told him his pheromones were disgusting, too. His hand, reaching for her, froze. A look of genuine hurt crossed his face. She added that because of him, she would never eat a mint candy again for the rest of her life. He slowly lowered his hand, his expression grim. He reminded her that she had promised to love him forever. She looked out the window, observing that he had made promises too, promises not to hurt her. Spring, she thought, was finally coming. The wild jasmine would be in bloom soon. Julian forced her to attend a gala. He had been so suffocatingly close lately that the socialites had changed their tune. The pity was gone, replaced by a snide, knowing admiration for the beta who had successfully reeled her alpha back in. As Julian was occupied with networking, she saw her chance to leave. She overheard a group of women buzzing about a mysterious guest who never attended such events. Though they didn't say his name, she knew they were talking about Vance. She hadn't been able to see him since he'd helped her. Julian watched her too closely. She hesitated, wondering if she should stay or go. She decided against it. She couldn't very well thank him for destroying her family in front of a crowd. She slipped out a side door. As she was trying to hail a cab to the hospital where Leo was staying, a black town car pulled up beside her. The door opened. The man in the back seat looked up at her, his face a mask of cold displeasure. He told her to get in. Vance was visibly angry. Back at his house, he sat in silence. The driver had disappeared down the lane. Finally, he spoke, his voice flat. He accused her of lying to him. She apologized, explaining that Julian had been watching her every move. His expression only darkened. Her excuses sounded weak, even to her own ears. The car felt small and hot. It took her a moment to realize the heat was radiating from him. His breathing was heavy, and a flush had spread across his skin. He was going into his rut. She asked if she should call someone for him. He shook his head and told her the suppressants were in the cooler next to her. The liquid in the syringe was cold and clear. As she unbuttoned his shirt, she felt his breathing grow heavier with each button, making her nervous. She remembered the feel of his strong arms. Noticing her hesitation, Vance sneered, asking if she didn't know how, if Julian had never needed her to do it. The barb hit its mark. She assured him she knew how. As the needle went in, he let out a soft hiss of pain. An alpha's personality could shift dramatically during a rut. Some became violent. Others, apparently, became petulant. He told her she could go. His eyes were clearer now. He got out of the car. She remembered their unfinished deal and followed him. She tried to explain about Leo, about her plan to use the Omega Protection Center to file a lawsuit. He cut her off with a bitter laugh. He called her clever, always using others to achieve her goals. She didn't deny it. Was it wrong to want to survive? He said she wasn't wrong. He was. For falling for someone who was already taken. For hoping she would be free soon. The suppressant was already wearing off. He looked at her, his voice low and intense, and warned her that if she didn't leave now, she wouldn't be able to. She turned and closed the garden gate behind her. He didn't even make it to the bedroom. The oak table was hard against her back, but she was too consumed by the man who was emotionally unraveling on top of her to care. The wild jasmine in the garden was in full bloom. Its scent so intoxicating, she felt herself melting into the spring air. Leo was more delusional than she had imagined. He barely glanced at the evidence she had compiled. He claimed his suffering was worth it for Julian, that their child would forever be a bond between them. He was certain Julian would eventually fall in love with him. She didn't argue, simply called him insane and left. Julian found her in a small park across from his estate. He looked haggard. He started to speak her name, then stopped abruptly. She touched the back of her neck. Vance had been mostly gentle, but as his sanity returned, he had given her a sharp, possessive bite. A mark of retaliation, he had called it. Now it was on full display. Even if he couldn't see the mark, the pheromones told the whole story. For 3 days, she felt as if she had been steeped in wild jasmine. Julian stood a few feet away, his fists clenched, his eyes red. She could feel his instinctual repulsion to another alpha scent. After a long, tense silence, he let out a breath, a sigh of surrender. He told her he wouldn't ask who it was. He begged her to come home to call it even. But nothing could ever be even. The world wasn't built that way. There were fated pairs with perfect compatibility, and there were impossible pairings born of defiance. Omegas had protection centers, alphas had power and privilege. Betas, the ordinary people, were caught in the middle with no one to champion their cause. Nothing could ever be truly even. At that long-ago gala, Julian had rescued her from her loneliness, astonished that she hadn't eaten. He had offered her a home and candy. In return, all he asked was that she love him forever. She held out the crumpled divorce papers one last time. "I don't love you anymore," she said. His face went ashen. This time he didn't refuse. The sun was bright. She thought of the man who had laid his heart at her feet. She had only half convinced him of her sincerity. There was still work to be done.